Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Understories with me, your host, Lindsay Fowler. This week we're speaking to Lauren Gonzalez, an educator and branding expert based in Vancouver, Washington. Lauren is the founder of For the Creatives, a YouTube channel and educational platform that provides guidance and resources for freelance designers. And she's also the co-founder of Principium Studio, a design studio she founded with her husband that specializes in branding for e-commerce brands. Lauren started her entrepreneurial journey 8 years ago, which coincided with the birth of her first child. Now, 8 years on, Principium is now a flourishing six-figure business, and For the Creatives has almost 120,000 followers. So, needless to say, Lauren's story and experience is a great example for anyone learning to try and balance all the things all at once. She's learned lessons the hard way and now runs two solid businesses that allow her the time for her family. Ultimately, she built businesses that were right for her. She's smart, ambitious, and focused, and it was such a great conversation. I can't thank her enough for spending time with me. Before we get started, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating or review wherever you're watching or listening to this. Tell a friend, and don't forget to subscribe so that you get notified about future episodes, which drop every other Tuesday. And now, over to Lauren. So, Lauren, thank you for coming on to Understories. It's so nice to have you. Can you, for people who don't know who you are, can you give us a brief introduction to what you do and your story so far?
Sure. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Lindsay, for having me. I'm very happy to be able to discuss with all of your audience and discuss with you. So I'll just make it really brief. I've been a graphic designer for it's now about 14 years, and I worked 6 years in-house, and then I wanted to start a family, so I started my own design business 8 years ago. It's now 8.5 years ago, actually. and so then it took lots of unexpected hard work to get it off the ground, and it's been just a great steady upward trending since that point. Thankfully, all that hard work at the beginning really paid off, but I don't take it for granted. I know the amount of work it goes into it. And about 4 years ago, I decided that I saw a lot of other designers struggling, and that was really when things were picking up really well for my design business. So I wanted to start a YouTube channel to help educate others on how to grow their own businesses. And I got a lot of questions about how to even become a designer. So I started to help and create content to help newer designers, as well as those more seasoned looking to really make their business work. So now I have these two businesses: For the Creatives, the educational side, and then Principium is my design business.
Amazing. I mean, like because I came across you, I can't remember. I think I found you on Instagram or something, and it was so great to come across someone who who comes at it from a designer's point of view. And I think that there's something about being able to speak that language of design to designers about business and have them understand that, these things are not super complicated, and being a way to explain it to people in a way that it's accessible. I mean, when you started doing For the Creatives, was it, did you have to kind of really think about the lessons that you wanted people to understand? I mean, you had questions that you said people were asking you, but did you think about what were some of the things they needed to know for sure?
Yeah, I did some research also, just going through lots and lots of online forums and seeing what people were talking about in blogs, especially. I had not myself listened to any YouTube channels or done any listened to any podcasts on the subject when I was growing my business. I mainly looked at some blogs and other online content. So when I did some research, I realized the same thing that I had struggled with at the beginning, which was pricing and how to actually find the clients, were some of the top things that were coming up. Because obviously there's all sorts of things that go into a business, but if you don't have the clients coming in and you don't know how to how to charge, then you'll never get anywhere. You'll never be able to sustain yourself to make a living as it.
It's so true. And I mean, what were some of the things when you first started out and pricing and, trying to get those clients through the door? What were some of the things that you had to do that were sort of trial by fire, or that could have helped you learn the things that you would end up teaching later on?
Oh, well, I first off learned that hourly is not a way to do it. And that was
Yeah.
big problem. I learned that at the beginning. There was a client that was referred to me by a friend of a friend, and she wanted to have me on retainer. I didn't even know what retainer meant, but
Right.
I had to do probably days of research before I got back to her with an hourly rate, and then she negotiated it down, and it was just, and then I would do all these hours. She wouldn't pay for 3 months. I didn't have a contract. Didn't have any real a
Mm.
structure around. So I think it's, while I say that pricing and clients are the best, or client acquisition is really the most important, without the other structures there, such as contracts, it's impossible to keep rally on all your clients and make sure that
Yeah.
things go smoothly. So I think the biggest thing was don't do hourly, and that uh, $300 for a project is basically like punching myself in the I don't know, the face, because in the end, that's just going to cover minimum amount of time that you're going back and forth with emails, not to mention everything that goes into a project. So it's been about
Mm.
confidence, gaining the confidence that I can charge more, learning to talk about money. That's such a difficult thing to even discuss, and
Mm.
stuttering all over the place when I would get on a phone with a client, trying to just keep it all through email about pricing, but realizing that that's not going to allow me to charge the prices that are going to sustain myself, and not allow me to have to work 24/7 to even keep going. So, yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, that is a hard lesson. And I think that even me who, has worked on this side of things, right? It's like price things for clients for my own businesses, like not what I'm doing now, but like when I was working in design, like
Yeah.
that was fine. I was like, yeah, I can do this. Like, I just would throw out fees and it'd be no problem. But when it came to doing it for myself, I found it excruciating. It's so hard to have that confidence to be able to be like, I know that this product is really good, even if you know that it's really good, but that kind of feeling of, advocating for the value that you're going to bring, and being able to negotiate, because that's not a skill I think that we learn very easily, especially in
Oh,
art school or design school, or oh, it's tough. I guess it must have been like, I guess sort of a, what's the word, like try it, see how it goes, and then have
yeah.
another go at some and things like that. Yeah, yeah. Did you ever
It
get to
took
a
me
place where oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it took me years to build up the confidence to charge more than $1,000, just as a frame of reference.
Right,
Oh.
right. To do a full design project, right?
Yeah, I would do full design projects, but I would charge ridiculously low rates because of the
Yeah.
confidence level. I didn't know what I could be doing. There wasn't I didn't also seek a lot of help, but I had to
Mm.
figure it out on my own until I started reading books. Books really were the thing that helped project me to the next level.
Mm. What were some of those books?
Well, This Is Marketing and the One Page Marketing Plan were the two, like, they just were the business changing, life changing books for me. They're so simple, but that some of the simplest concepts that you don't realize can project you to where you want to go. And
Mm.
then I would say the Win Without Pitching Manifesto by Blair Enns, also about pricing and the confidence of pricing. So those
Mm.
three books really, really, I can't stress enough how important those are.
Yeah, those are great books. The Win Without Pitching is one that I've read, yeah, many times, and it's just always like you're right. It's like the concepts are so simple and they're so obvious when you hear them written out that way.
Yes.
But I wonder why it is that why it feels so new, because it does feel very straightforward. It's like the more more information you can get from the client, the more that you can see yourself as a partner with them, as opposed to um I don't know, a master servant relationship or whatever it is. Like these are all really standard things that you think about when you're doing a collaboration with somebody, but I don't know, for some reason it's really difficult to, I don't know, put yourself in that position where you can negotiate effectively.
Yeah.
um it's amazing. Now, did you always want to be a graphic designer and have your own business? Was that something that was always on the cards?
No, it wasn't. Growing up, I knew I always wanted to do something creative, and I wanted to be
Mm.
an animator for a very long time. I actually went to the school Walt Disney created for animation, which is
Oh my
CalArts
gosh.
in Valencia, California. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was going down the path of being an animator, I decided to switch into illustration, and then things kind of worked out to have me do design. So I realized graphic design was really about the whole composition, and it encompassed illustration, and it encompassed so much as well that it kind of led me down that path I did, and I ended up having a job for 6 years. So I did design cards when I was little. I didn't realize there was a difference between drawing, illustration, or graphic design. I never really saw much delineation. So it was interesting to be able to kind of compartmentalize them and see how they worked.
Yeah, I mean, so when you were doing CalArts, so when you were doing the illustration, did you stay there and finish that degree and then transition into graphic design, or did you transition whilst you were there into a more like a graphic design focused degree?
So I did a year animation, and then I went into illustration as a major. So I kind of dipped my foot in a lot of different areas and then went into graphic design. So it would have been great. And I've thought about going back and actually completing it, because now my daughter's very interested in animation, and things kind of, that passion is really coming back for me. So we'll see what the future holds on that. But right now, I never pictured myself having my own business. It was not something, but I realized after being in-house, I didn't want that lifestyle. And especially with being pregnant and wanting to be there for my children, I knew that this was the right move for me at that time, as hard as it was. And nobody told me it was going to be that hard.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, I got some warning from friends and family, but I knew that I had to do it, and it was something that I would regret if I didn't try, at least.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that you say that, the previous job, you're like, I didn't want that kind of lifestyle. It was too hard to, don't want it to have my own thing. But it's like, it's a different kind of hard, isn't it? When you're, especially with a small baby. I mean, my God, like I can't even imagine. I mean, what did you do to kind of help you? I mean, you said the first few years were really tough, and I imagine it wasn't just the sort of the business side. It was obviously having a small baby, and it's like that's a whole upheaval in itself. But what did you do to kind of facilitate yourself along that path to get to where your business started to take off?
Well, the beginning, luckily, first I had a few months before he was born, but then luckily babies sleep a lot. So I definitely took advantage of that. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I mean, I was working way too much. The same day that I was in labor, I was still working and I think I only took about 2 or 3 days. Do not recommend that to anybody. You can take your time. Don't pressure yourself. It's the most beautiful experience, and you don't want to just remember it as, you had to get back to work. So yeah. But I think the process that really helped for me is the transition from I was still trying to figure out what I was going to do, what was really my niche in everything, and what was I going to be Etsy? Was I going to be selling here? Was I going to just be doing service-based? So when I really figured out the service-based was the way to really make the best profit, at least at the beginning, because digital products take a long time to really get off the ground. So I decided that was the way I was going to go. And then I started getting more referrals and clients in a specific area that I had chosen to work in. And so my husband saw the potential here, and he's a photographer and he's also a strategist. So he saw the potential to lend that to the business and see how we could merge both skills. And when he really came on board and we rebranded it to be what it is and really took it off, that really helped to make it into something, okay, this is going to go all the way. And going all the way helped me to realize, there's no turning back. We got to get serious. We got to get our systems in place and everything so that we can build on this.
When you say systems about this, like, what do you mean exactly? I mean, I think I probably know what you mean, but I would be curious to know for you, what were some of the systems that you guys put in place?
Well, we got Dubsado, which is a beautiful, that's a client portal. And you can also do tracking in there, but it's not as good as something like ClickUp for the tracking. But the systems really was, how can we simplify things, not have to rely on PayPal for invoicing? Use that as integrated. When we're going to be sending a contract, how do we make it so it's one email goes to the client when they're doing the onboarding. They have an email that goes from Dubsauto with the invoice, the contract, and the project brief that they can fill out. So it's all in one place. It's not all this scattered back and forth, saves hours of work. And when you get a volume of clients coming in, you have to have that kind of systems so that you're not just scrambling all over the place trying to figure out where all the admin is. And so that was a big step up for us on the systems aspect. And then, having some sort of a tracking system, even if it's an Excel grid of where projects stand, how much outreach have you done? What is the rate of closure? All these different aspects are those behind the scenes admin things that people don't realize are so important.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. It's always the least sexy bits is what I always say. It's like the bits that are not the ones that you put out on Instagram or you talk about openly, but it's those things that actually and also they're repeatable, right? And you do them over and over again, and they build results, right? So as you say, get more time back, not going back and forth with the client, being able to track projects, conversion rates of clients, things like that. It's amazing. Did you feel really comfortable with sales when you got into this?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I did not like that at all. It was a real uphill climb for me. Yeah.
How did you get over it? Tell me, because I need to know.
Well, I would say that everybody has those feelings, those emotions. Yeah. If you've seen Inside Out or Inside Out 2, have you seen those movies?
Oh yeah, I love them. They're amazing.
Well, so great, because I feel they actually consulted with real psychologists to really make sure that things were accurate to the emotions. And the thing that reason I'm bringing that up is that everybody has the same types of emotions. There's no, it's not like, oh, that person doesn't ever get anxiety, or that person is always happy or something, because inside people still feel these emotions, and it's a matter of just being okay to say, you know what, this one's not going to help me right now. I just got to go through it and do it anyway. Go through that comfort zone, go past the comfort zone. And I still sometimes feel butterflies when I'm going into a client meeting, and it still happens, but I just do it anyway. So I think that the practice and the confidence that I've had people say yes enough times that I know that I have some value and I've helped them get results has built up my confidence. But at the beginning, when you don't have that, it's harder. It's harder because you don't have a lot of ground to stand on. So that's something that you still just have to keep going and keep doing it anyway. So
yeah, that's a really great point. I think it's a muscle, isn't it? With any of these things, like you have to get more comfortable doing it. I mean, on last season we had my sales coach that came on, and it was really funny because he taught me cold sales, like cold calling. Wow. And I actually I cried the first time I even attempted to do it, because it was just so excruciating for me to I don't even know what the emotion was, like sheer terror maybe of picking up the phone and calling somebody who I didn't know. But I think it's true. It's like you do it once and then it's like, oh, it's not as bad as you think it is. And then I still don't like doing it. And I don't actually think people like getting cold calls per se, but the jury's still out on this one. But doing it, and as you do, you get more comfortable. You get a thicker skin as well. You get a little bit more comfortable with rejection, which I think is maybe that's at the core, is actually what's the really painful bit, right? Because you're coming into it with your ideas and you want to sell to someone, and then they just reject you on that.
Right. But if you realize like that's the worst that can happen, like they're not going to harm you physically, like nothing, you're not in danger or life threatening. It's just, you're going to hear a no. And I think that you're very brave for doing cold calls. That's not something I've ever done. And I think that is a hard one. I think that, emails is usually what people feel more comfortable with at first, because they can build that up. And I've had success with some students who have used emails in tandem with LinkedIn outreach is really, I think, one of the great ways to really help get yourself known. But something that in this day and age, unfortunately, we have to utilize that content creation. And this people expect so much to be able to build up the relationship before you even reach out, make them warm up. So that was something that I've found to be really successful and helpful for me, is being able to utilize other people's audiences, make them feel comfortable with who I am, get in front of them. As much as I was terrified of it, I did it anyway. And that's what those books that I mentioned, like the one-page marketing plan, really helped me to see the entire marketing picture of my business and what I had to do in order to get it to where I wanted to go.
That's really interesting. When you say like that thing about social media and how like, and I include LinkedIn on social media as well, because it's a way of building trust with people and communicating and things like that. I mean, I don't know if we talked about this when we first met, but I've been thinking a lot over the last month, a lot about how you build a relationship with someone through social media, because in the work that we do is really heavily relationship driven, right? And I don't think it's going to take a long time for someone to convert into buying from me if they've just purely seen us on social media, right? It just takes a while. So, you're saying the LinkedIn and the email combination works. What are some of the things that you've done, including in that, to help you build those relationships with clients?
Yeah, I think one really good thing is when you offer something. This is a pretty typical marketing cycle, but offering something of value that they can exchange with you for their email address, and then
Sure.
giving them a series of emails after that to help them understand what you do, how, mainly not talking about you, but talking about them, their problems, what are things that that they need to get solved with. And then after a few months, offer, hey, I would love to do a free analysis on your listing, or check out your brand, check out your website, whatever your services are. And I've gotten clients that way. I've also gotten clients when, there's a lot of people out there on the internet that have already established businesses and audiences that may not be direct competitors, but have similar clients to yours. So going and getting in front of their audiences, which is something I did, going on podcasts of coaches in the e-commerce space, in the Amazon
Right.
space, which is the niche I target. So that was something that really helped me to, obviously, because the person they listened to got me onto their podcast, it already automatically builds this trust. And then they hear the value I'm providing, they reach out later. So that was another really successful way too.
Wow. Yeah. It's a lot. I think what is it? The rule is like 7-11-4. I can't remember the breakdown of it, but it's like how many times people have to interact with you and come across you, but also having that sort of social proof of someone who they respect, endorse. And,
Yeah.
that makes such a huge difference to the person who's in that position, because I think, we all are looking for that validation from someone that we're thinking of buying from, especially when you're in like the business of relationships and stuff like that, because you don't just like go out on a first date with someone and ask them to marry you. It takes a little time to get to know them, right? So
Exactly.
you need that kind of shorthand, shortcut. Um, well, let's fast forward now. So you've got these two businesses. So you've got the education side, and you've got principium. Is that right? Did I say it?
Yeah, it's a Latin word. So my husband is of Latin descendants. I mean, he's from Mexico, and he wanted
Oh.
to. So we chose a word that represented the origin, so the beginning of a brand,
Mm, mm.
and that would convey that. But it's often, I've gone back and forth of, was it the right thing to use this, because people sometimes don't know how to pronounce it, but it always becomes the topic of a conversation. So
No, I love it. I love it. I
yeah,
think I read it on your website, and I was like, I love that as because it has such a brilliant association with what you guys do, right? It's like it's that when you're at a kernel at the beginning of a brand, and actually at the very sort of base of it, and actually how you can grow it from there. And obviously there's like really lovely derivations from the word, right? In language now, right?
yeah.
But yeah, so you've got these two businesses, and you're working with your husband, and you've got two kids. Like, I mean, to say that you juggle many balls, have many balls in the air, how is probably an understatement. And you've got your marketing that you do, and you've got your podcast. There's lots of things involved in running these two things. How do you negotiate that?
Well, it's definitely a juggle.
Mm.
And my husband also had another business which he just sold, so that was something that was going at the same time. And
Wow.
it's a lot to deal with. And I think that the real thing that I've learned along the way is prioritizing. There's always going to be, at certain stages, there's going to be things that have to be prioritized, and
Mm.
some things sometimes have to be put on hold in order to do that. As an
Mm.
example, Principium has been really picked up in the past few years. And so I've had even more clients and more work. And for the
Mm.
creatives, I still keep it going. I still do my coaching. I still have my courses, and I teach every day and critique different designs from new designers, and also do weekly coaching for my students for the freelance side. But it's a, I had to, I'm working on a new course, and I had to go in the back burner so that I could really prioritize the client work that I had. So
Mm.
at the same time, I think that it's really about having those, prioritizing the tasks, knowing, okay, today I'm going to do this, and tomorrow I'm going to prioritize the other business. And
Mm.
then figuring out, okay, so trying to batch things together so that you're in the mindset, you get in the mindset. So I like to do a lot of design work in one day, so that it's just, I'm in that mindset of designing. The next day, if I need to do some content creation or figuring out or writing the content for my course, which is really what I've been prioritizing when I work on For the Creatives,
Mm.
it's that's what I do, is I batch create it. I do that in when I'm in that mindset, because a lot of the time when you're switching between two things, it's part of the struggle is getting in the right mindset. That could take up to an hour or so to even just
Mm.
get that momentum going. Whereas if you just say, okay, today's this day and tomorrow's this day, and really think with the year goals, the quarterly goals, monthly goals, weekly goals, that's what I always have to be looking at the calendar and looking at the bigger picture.
Mm. I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing to hear, right? Because you know, starting with the end and working backwards, but also finding ways to prioritize things on the day to day. I mean, it all works together, right? I think it's hard to keep that perspective when you're in the you're in the trenches, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever, I don't know if this is just me, but do you ever feel like you're like when you have so much going on, it's like there almost feels like it's never ending, right? Do you have to take time to, I don't know, celebrate the wins, for lack of a better phrase, or take a pause and be like, no, actually, okay, we've got to this point. Okay, I'm gonna just enjoy that for a moment and then get on with the other stuff.
Absolutely. And I know you're also a mother, and you understand
Yeah.
that having the kids really helps to make sure I do that, because I
Mm.
really try, and when they come home, I really try and stop the work at that point, and I schedule
Right.
the day so that I stop at that point and I can be with them. And to me, that's during summertime, it was definitely more of a struggle, and we had to put some things on the back burner. And we
Mm.
knew, okay, this it's just going to stress me out beyond belief if I try and fit in everything. So I had to
Yeah.
put some things on hold. I had to prioritize. I had to schedule out projects that with
Mm.
clients, and just kind of slow down a bit in order to accommodate them, because in the end, that is my why. That's my reason, is
Mm.
that I even started the business. Obviously, I love to create and I love to help designers, but my kids are what I do everything for. So I want to make sure that I'm able to be with them, and I'm able to do the things that make everything worth it. So
Yeah.
and I've had to learn that the hard way, because for the first few years, I worked all the weekends, I worked all night. I didn't have that
Mm.
sense, and it was really damaging to me. So I
Mm.
had to put that, and also having things to look forward to. Like, we're working towards an end of year trip, and we're doing
Mm.
different things, and we have different targets we have to make. So it becomes a game and exciting, so that it's
Mm.
not just constant, okay, next thing, next thing, next thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. Is it because I think we can just shift the goalposts, as they say, like down the field, right? You
Yes.
can just be like, oh, okay, across that one, down to the next one. And if you don't, yeah, it's really hard because I think if you're ambitious, you want to see your business get to where you want it to go. It's taken off as well, which is the dream. It's the thing that you want to have happen. But with that comes downsides, right? And it's about
So
how do you approach that in a way that keeps all the things that matter to you most at the forefront without sacrificing them. But the business is up there with that, right? So it's always really difficult to navigate that. Do you guys have people working for you, or do you outsource very much?
I have a specific designer who I work with as
Okay.
his creative director, and I help him. And he is amazing. He's been working with me for like 6 years now. So,
Amazing.
and as the workload gets more, then I know I have him as a right wing. There's a few other admin people that we have just on very short temporary, not temporary, but short term short amount of hours.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's been a very interesting journey working with my husband. I wouldn't want any other business partner, really. He's
Mm,
very he keeps things, he has the strengths that I don't have, which is really, I really appreciate. And we try and keep it so that inside the office we talk business, outside the office we don't. And we try and keep that so that our marriage stays strong outside and business partners stay strong inside. It's not
yeah.
always easy. I will not try and make, sugarcoat things, but we have really learned, in the process. And I feel like we're at a great rhythm, and we
That's
keep things.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that is hard, right? It's like I think you've nailed it in the sense that you have to have those boundaries around things, right? Because if you don't ring fence the work, it will just trickle into everything
Yes.
else, right? And then you'll be like cooking dinner and you'll be talking about something that happened with a client, or
Yeah.
does that happen even if are you guys just like really strict about it?
Sometimes, I mean, if there's something that's like right on my mind and I can't think about
Sure.
anything else, then I have to say it, and
Yeah.
then we kind of just talk about it and say, okay, we'll deal with that tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, we really try, we really try, and
It's
yeah,
about the intention, right? I think that's the most important bit.
yes,
Um,
exactly.
what's one of the well, I would say what's the biggest challenge you're facing at the moment in the business? And how are you tackling it?
It's really to get this course completed for
Right.
the creatives. I've been promising this to my audience for, I think it's 2 years now, since I
What's
did
the
the how.
course?
It's a brand identity course.
Oh.
So I had done the fundamentals of design course, which has
Mm.
been great. I've had hundreds and hundreds of students go through and have great results. But they were like, okay, what's the next thing? Now I want to learn brand identity. And I've had students who go and try and look for some other online course, but they're not really satisfied. So they're like, come on, get done. So I've had to keep pushing back the date because of Principium, the design
Yeah.
business, and that's been super challenging. So I'm finally at a point where I've been just chipping away at it, really, like every day as much as I can. Some days I can't do it, but most days, and finally getting to a point where I can see the light. But it's been really challenging. So when having two businesses, I wouldn't recommend it if someone is like on the fence, unless you really, really understand that it is not an easy ride.
Mm,
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, the online course thing is a really interesting one. There is such a prolification. Is that a word? Can you like? There's so many people out there doing online courses. That
Yeah.
must be a new challenge in itself to attract people to that. I suppose there's probably a cap on the number of people that you can coach and that you. But when you do the online courses, there's an active outreach to push and sell them? Do you use social media? How do you get those out into the world?
Well, I haven't I haven't launched my Consistent Clients Blueprint program, which I usually do about 3 times a year, but I haven't done it since
Mm,
March because I wanted to prioritize the branding course. So,
mm,
but usually people find me on YouTube. That's been the best way because
wow.
it's evergreen content. It's not like Instagram where you put something out and then maybe it'll just a few people will ever see it again.
Mm,
It's thousands and thousands a day that see these videos. And so then
mm,
they see them, I offer something that they can get to help them, and they get kind of into my weekly, it's called nurturing, where you're providing value and then only
mm,
selling, a few times a year. So that's
mm,
really how. Sometimes if they get into more of an evergreen where evergreen, meaning it's always there, it's always available.
Yeah.
So they get in and they get a few emails, and then they'll be able to join the fundamentals course. So that one is kind of always open for people to come into. But the other one, it's really just about launching it. I don't have it open all the time.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it just, I don't know. I mean, I've thought about doing online courses. I mean, I think you're amazing at it because you've learned the art of presenting, right? Which is a special skill in itself, right? And to be able to deliver information in a compelling way, clearly. I mean, it's obviously a really great skill set you've developed. Because I mean, I was watching your course. I think it was actually the course on selling because I was like, what are people talking about within this industry about sales? Because I had this kind of what do you say? Like I had a kind of a bee in my bonnet about the sales, like a sales pipeline, sales processes, like sales teams within creative industries and how they are missing and how sales is reliant upon founders to go out and do it because generally we tend to be small companies and how we're not trained in it. And so I just had this like rabbit hole that I went down in. And I think and I knew about you already. And so I was like, I found you through some Googles, and I think it was actually through YouTube that it had come up. I mean, one of the questions I've always wondered about, I mean, I talk to clients all the time is, what are the things that people come to you with when they're just starting out? They're like, they don't know anything, and, what kind of, I know they vary, and obviously they're very contextual, right? Because everyone's in a slightly different position. But what are some of the things that you keep hearing, some of the trends that you keep hearing from people that you work with about what's missing in their education or things that they wish they knew when they were starting their business?
Yeah, it is a lot of similarities and overlap I see between different designers that come to me. And it's a lot of the time not knowing how to have those conversations, the sales aspect, not even bringing up money on the call and waiting till the proposal and then sending the proposal without having any idea on the budget of the client, and then they ghost them, and it was all for nothing. So they spent hours putting together the sales, doing the sales call and the proposal, and it was for nothing. So that's one that I've been really, really working on getting and coaching designers to bring up the pricing, talk about it.
Yeah.
So just like you
Okay.
mentioned about sales. And then the other thing is really about people trying, maybe doing 5 outreach on LinkedIn or 5 emails, and then nobody answers, and then saying this doesn't work and never trying again.
Yeah. I remember you talking about the numbers game, right? And how it is a
Yeah.
numbers game. You just can't avoid it. It has to be done.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that is, and I understand it's frustrating when you don't see any reward and you're like, well, when is this ever going to work? And not trying all the different options. Like I teach about 15 different tactics that they can try to get clients, and people explore maybe 1 or 2 of them and then say, this isn't working. And it's like, okay, push yourself, do the other ones, do the outreach, just keep going. And I think that for me, it was a non-negotiable that I was going to go back and work in-house. It was like I put so much time that I would do anything and go all the way. And that's what I want to instill in people is take it all the way. Don't give up too soon.
That's, yeah, incredible. Because I find this with people that we work with sometimes, that there's real resistance to trying more than one option in terms of outreach, or they've tried, as you say, they've tried it 5 times and nothing's happened. And then it's like, oh, it's not going to work. What do you say to them when they're kind of digging their heels in a little bit, being like, oh, this isn't working. No one's going to buy from me.
I tell them to don't come back to me until you've done 100. You've tried 100, because only then will you be able to see an accurate figure of what's working, what's not. And there's been people who have, after they really start going, then they're like, oh, wow, this person wrote back to me. This person scheduled the call. This person. Okay, so good. What happened? Did the client close, or is there something else? Is there something wrong with your calls? Is there something wrong with some stage of it? Because there's always an aspect that you can tweak. And a lot of the response rate from emails that are written correctly is going to be higher than just blasting a bunch of people. Like when I say 100 outreach, it has to be quality, researched, really understand each person. So, yeah.
I mean, that it brings into in a whole other topic, which is probably a whole other podcast about like knowing the right client to reach out to and the
Yes.
right niche that you need to have and all that. And I kind of go back and forth on the niche thing because I'm interested in your thoughts on this because I know you guys niche in e-commerce and it's worked really well for you.
Yeah.
But I've always wondered about this because I mean, maybe it's when you're first starting out is that there's obviously this desire to say yes to everything, right? Which I think is natural and appropriate.
Yeah.
But there's also a side of it of like kind of shiny object syndrome and like new things that you might want to try or a different sector comes your way or whatever. And so I get resistance sometimes for niching because it's like, oh yeah, but that I don't want to be locked into one kind of thing. And I'm interested in your thoughts on niching in that context.
Yeah, it's a very scary concept. It's kind of like asking someone in high school what do they want to do for their career because they realize it's a very heavy decision. And I
Mm,
think that the thing is that I advise people to go and explore different ideas and try different
mm,
types of design, see what calls to them. And then but the thing is that if they don't ever choose who they want to work with, how are they going to ever be able to put out the right content? It's going to be very broad and
mm,
very generic, and they're not going to know where they are online.
mm.
I give this Ralph Breaks the Internet kind of, you've seen that movie. There's a scene
No, I
where
haven't seen that one. No.
oh, it's a great one. I think it was 2016, and it's they go into this internet world, and it's just massive. Like you wouldn't be able to find people. And if you think about it, the internet is that way. It's a
Mm,
massive world. So if you're just like shouting from here, "Hey, hire me, I'm a designer," you're not going to get anywhere. And I know that people say, well, you can just keep posting on Instagram and somebody's going to be attracted to your style. Yeah, maybe, but that could take years. So,
years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So why not just take a leap of faith, decide something. It doesn't have to be also super narrow. Like we chose Amazon sellers and kind of expanded to e-commerce. I have a
Mm,
student who's done CPG, so that's consumer packaged goods, and he
mm,
is really kind of really narrowed it down to the food and beverage area within that, but he started bigger. And so that, and he's doing great. Like he's getting
mm,
clients. He's now having the problem of, oh, I don't know how to balance them. And, it takes patience and time and just persistence. But if you don't choose something, you're not going to know who to ever go towards. It's like
mm,
saying, well, I want to go travel. And it's like, okay, where do you want to travel to? You have to choose a destination. And that's kind
mm.
of how I see the niche as being that.
Yeah, you make a really excellent point there because I think people assume that you're going to be, I don't know, I think like the Seth Godin specificity of niching, like when it's like, oh, I'm going to sell toothbrushes to, this is a terrible example, toothbrushes to, Eskimos in Alaska, say, for example. I don't, it's
Yeah.
so specific, but I feel like, I think if you don't really understand what niching can do, it's like, I think that's the mindset is that you become hyper focused on one thing. But actually there is openness in that because as you say, if you're doing Amazon and e-commerce or Amazon e-commerce, like it's like that's a lot. That's a lot of variety, right? Or doing
Yeah.
consumer product goods is like that's a big industry. Even and then he's niched down even further into food and beverage. So, I mean, I've struggled with this one as well because I feel like, I work with a lot of designers and I work with a lot of architects. But I think that for me, I've been trying to think about niching in a much more kind of like a psychographic way.
Hmm.
It's like the type of people that you want to work with who have a certain mindset or a certain way of wanting to work or show up in the world kind of thing. So there's options, right? You don't have to be like this product.
Yeah, there are options as long the criteria I always say is there has to be common places they are online, common groups,
Mm,
common people they listen to, common associations, because if you have that, then you can go there and you can go be part of those summits and you can speak on those summits and you can go to those podcasts and be a part of that small portion of the internet. Where like Amazon is these third-party sellers, they have very specific peculiarities. And because that's kind of what I worked with at the beginning, by chance, I ran with it because I kept getting referred to. If I had to start over again, I would probably choose something different. But that's something that is really where, you just have to make sure it's has some sort of a place where you can find them, because otherwise it's not worth it. It's not worth going. And some people just choose locations. Like they want to be the designer in a specific city. So something that's very maybe peculiar and you can brand to be appealing to that area. I think in big cities, it doesn't work very well because most design agencies kind of go to these big cities like London, Paris, New York, LA, but there's ways to do it into smaller ones. And it's just a matter of really making sure you know where to go and that there's a place for you to have as a destination.
Yes, great. And there has to be an audience for it, right? There has to be a big enough thing to make it viable, right? You could be super specific and there might not be enough people to sustain a business off the back of it. Your niche could be that, specific.
Right.
Yeah. But that goes back to that thing you were talking about before, is like, the marketing plan, that ability to kind of do loads of research, find out what people are talking about, what, is there a big enough group that are looking for these sort of things, and having those conversations, right?
Yeah.
So for you and your husband, what does success look like? What does it look like for you as business partners, as, double business people, all those things?
Yeah, to us, success is really about being able to have the clients coming in because we know we did a good quality job for them, and being able to help those that need our help. I love seeing success stories and results from students and from clients. That's a really, really big driving force for me to be able to keep going. And obviously we definitely want to have, and we've been lucky to being able to have the financial stability and be able to continue with that, because our kids have big goals. My son is probably going to end up at Caltech and end up at NASA or SpaceX or something as a astrophysicist, and we have a lot to support with that. So definitely have big goals with these.
That's really cute. Yeah, before we got on to the recording, we were talking about how her son got to meet Anakin Skywalker at Comic-Con at the weekend.
Yeah.
Was it last weekend?
It was, yeah.
Oh,
Exactly.
that's so cool. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing. One question I haven't asked you, which I know we're kind of running out of time in a minute, but I wanted to ask you about the creative aspects of what you guys are doing, because you're a branding agency and you do strategy as well, but there's a creative component to what you're doing. And for you as a creative entrepreneur, how do you balance the business and creativity?
Well, it's a loaded question for sure. I mean, it's something that this is where the mindset that I was referring to about when I'm doing the business stuff, I'm doing that. And I then maybe break it up with, then after lunch, I'm going to work on a creative project, because that's something that I can't do them at the same time, because it requires like different parts of my brain or whatever it is. I don't know all the science behind it, but it's hard to get into the mindset of, I'm going to be creating now when I'm having to do the business. So it's just compartmentalizing and making sure that I still stay up on my skills and still keep, learning myself. And that's the great thing about teaching, is I think it's one of the best ways to learn more too.
Yeah.
I'm always learning and having to find answers for things. And so I love that. And so it makes me not get stale as a designer as well.
That's a great answer. Yeah, it's really true. I think compartmentalization is it, isn't it? And I think intentionality behind it, right? Because you're like, okay, this is something that I have to do, and this is something I want to do. But in order to be able to do the thing I want to do, I have to do this thing I have to do. So it's just kind of like, I guess, being okay with that, right? And being comfortable with that, we don't get to do everything that we love all the time when we have our own businesses, right?
No, that's what working in-house is for, is you want it just given to you, that's what in-house is, but it comes with
Yeah.
its benefits and downfalls, of course. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, we always end this with some quick fire questions, which are just for fun, and
okay.
I've found some fun ones for you. So,
Oh, good.
well, here's a good one. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Where I am right now, Washington or Alaska?
Alaska. Why
Yeah,
Alaska? I mean, I know it's
because
beautiful there, obviously, but
no, I don't do well with heat. So if it could be cold all year round, I would be very happy.
oh yeah, that's right. I remember us talking about that. How we both hate hot weather. That's right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're from LA originally, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not meant to be a California girl.
No. Nope. Northern Hemisphere, as north as you can possibly get.
Yeah.
If you could have coffee with an historical figure, who would it be?
Oh, Walt Disney.
No
I don't know if
kidding.
that counts as a historical, but it's definitely in history. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you want to talk to him about?
Oh, just his journey, because he has an
Mm.
incredible entrepreneur story, and I admire what he did for the animation world and film, and what he's created for, creating magic. Even, there's the goods and bads of the Disney Corporation at this stage, but
Sure.
it's so, nothing can take away the magic of those classic films and what he created as this great foundation for
Mm.
the world. So I
Mm.
definitely admire his creativity and his persistence. He went through a lot of struggles.
He did. He
Yeah.
did. Yes. Oh, yeah. There's a book about him, isn't there? There's a biography on his experience. Like, isn't there? Have I made this
There's a
up?
lot of books, there's documentaries.
Mm.
I can't think of the names. I mean, I have a lot of different books about him and the animation of Disney,
Mm.
but
Mm.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
some amazing. There's a great documentary. I don't remember if it's on Disney Plus, about his early years, like when he was basically living on the street.
Wow. It's amazing. I'm gonna have to go check that out. Okay, here's a fun one. If your business had a theme song, either of them had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh, there's this song that I play every time I'm about to go on to do a webinar or training, the live, and for the creatives, and that's "This Is Me," um, but from The Greatest Showman. So I love that song, and I would say that is it, because I have to always build up my confidence, and it's not always easy for me to be on camera.
Wait, it's
Yeah.
hard to believe that actually, because I feel like, doing this with you seem so comfortable on camera. It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, if people want to find you, find For the Creatives or Principium, if I think I
You
said that
got it.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. Where can they find you guys?
Yeah, so For the Creatives, YouTube is the greatest presence that there is. So it's just For the Creatives, number 4. And then also I have a podcast, Earning by Design, which if you go to my website, forthecreatives.com, there's lots of free content and pricing guides and how to get clients guides, time management guides. And so that's all there. And then principiumstudio.com, Principium, PRINCIPIUM studio.com is our design business.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Lauren, it's been really nice to have you. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been so nice to talk to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Lindsay. It's been a really enjoyable conversation.
Thank you. Thanks again to Lauren for being so open and thoughtful about her life and work. Balance is truly the hardest thing to find when you're running your own business, or multiple businesses in her case. But Lauren's clear intentions means she's able to prioritize that which matters most to her, and it's paid off. It's really inspiring to speak to her. Once again, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, all those sort of things, so you can be notified about new episodes which drop every other Tuesday. Until then, be well. Understories was produced by Cloud Fields and Kieran Fowler. The music is by Advez, and the branding is by Joe Jones. See you in a couple weeks.